The fantasy football universe, what is going on? I am today's host, SC Romero, here with my guy. No introduction needed. He is the dog himself. My man, Mike. How's it going, bro?
I'm good. How are you? I love that. The barking into the microphone. I love it. If I
It's
had the
all
voice for it right now, I would do it. But
there you go. Gotta do it, man. You're the dog of Dynasty. People need to follow you. Know what's up. Help them win the championships themselves. But it's exciting, right? Shout out to people in the championships weeks. My wife actually beat me this past week in our fantasy football matchup. So she's in the championship. So congrats to her. Shout out our guy Aaron St. Dennis, FF Mad Scientist. I believe he's one of the finalists there in the Warrior Bowl, at least the top 50. So he's finding it. Shout out our guy Jay Moeller, Jesse Moeller, Jay Moeller 05 on X. He's in the SFB finals as well, so that's
you,
great. Um,
you're killing me there.
yeah,
I think you
bro.
know what happened to me.
Well, no, I'm not. Well,
I thought we talked about it. Oh,
we may have.
I was number 51, and I missed it
Oh,
by .08.
I'm so
Yeah,
sorry. I'm
it's all
so
right.
sorry.
It's all right. Congrats to Jesse.
That
That's awesome. He's a good dude from the conversations I've had with him. So, congratulations
shout out Scott Fish, man, for putting that on. It's such a fun
for sure.
event to be a part of. You definitely get to network with tons of people in the community, and it's very competitive. And this last end of the season, we start playoffs in week 12. It's just
Yeah.
cutthroat. You just got to make the cut, right? And like you said, .08, man.
Stressful as hell, man.
Oh yeah, 100%. You're hitting the waivers. I mean, probably one of the most exciting parts of the fantasy football season is one, if you get into the SFB, that's always a great thing to get into. Two, if you fight figuring out the scoring, like how's he gonna do scoring this year? And each year is different. It's just always so much fun because you have to think differently on your draft, right? Because you have the mindset, I would take this guy 101, but scoring says no, you want to take this guy 101, right? So a lot of fun there. But I love with the fantasy football chat. We're gonna talk about Devy. This is our Devy talk here. This is our rising star reports. And the first round of the college football playoffs, shout out to college football playoffs, first time seeing it, 12 teams, is officially over. We saw a lot, I don't want to say upsets, just like it kind
Blowouts.
of blowouts. It puts us in the mindset of, do we really need this? Like, is this it? But I think as we progress with these teams that get in, we're gonna start to see upsets. Like, we couldn't expect it now, right? But as we progress, we're gonna start to see more and more upsets, right? So be there. Kenneth here asks us, thinking Beck and Ewers stay in college for another year. I think Beck has to. Being injured, he doesn't get a chance to shine for it. So I think he has to. Ewers, it depends how he does in the playoffs. And right now, he did all right. It wasn't so bad. The thing is with Beck, I think they both would have to transfer out, actually, if I'm not mistaken. For that extra year of eligibility, I think they would need to transfer to be able to do it.
I
Beck,
think something like, yeah.
I'm not 100% sure, but Ewers, regardless of if he stays or go, I mean, the team is ready to move on to Arch Manning. So we're going to talk more about them in their past week's game against Clemson
You
here.
know, you know what Brock Lesnar once said to Hulk Hogan.
What?
Party's over,
Oh
Grandpa.
yeah,
That's
right.
what
For
Arch is
Ewers,
saying to quit. Yeah.
100%. He's ready to take over, man. That Arch Manning media cartel is ready for him. He's ready to go in there and do his thing there. But let's start about the first game. This was actually a game on Friday night, and then there was 3 games on Saturday. First one was Indiana versus Notre Dame, and Notre Dame, 27-17. It was actually our closest match, I do believe.
I think you're right.
The biggest thing out of this is one, Curtis Rourke. People are high on him. He did good, right? 215 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. Did what he could, but it just showed Indiana wasn't ready for that next step. Where Notre Dame, they have arguably the RB1 of the 2026 class, and that is Jeremiah Love. 8 carries, 108 yards, 1 touchdown. What are your thoughts on that game, or what did you see about Jeremiah Love that you love about him?
So with that, Jeremiah Love, that 98-yard run, which is, I think, the longest in college football playoff history, or at least in the 12-team standings, I believe they said during the game. That was an awesome run. He does look and present as a 3-down back in the NFL. I just would have liked to see a little bit more than 8 carries of 108 yards, especially one being a 98-yard rush in of itself. Right. I know we're talking a lot about running backs tonight, but I was actually relatively pleasantly surprised with Riley Leonard as well. had a couple nice plays, a couple plays where he used that escapability that he has, and it was able to make, either a sack that should have been a 10 to 15 yard loss into a, 1 to 2 yard gain, but at least you're
But
not doing anything. So I saw some things there from him that I was okay with. And a guy I kind of heard his name a few times on Twitter is Elijah Scarrett, I believe it.
Surratt, yeah,
Yeah.
Surratt.
He made a couple nice plays, especially one down the sideline there that I really liked coming back for the ball. So that's a name I'm going to keep an eye on now. But Jeremiah Love
Sure.
definitely looks like the RB1 of 2026.
For sure. Shout out Rogers Travel said cool shirt. Yeah, we're wearing the Big Ten champion shirt. Go Ducks. Well,
I got a
we're not talking.
bird.
Hey, it's still a good bird though. I mean,
Yeah.
Jalen Hurts is hurt, so I'm sorry for all the people that have him in the championship. That's probably rough for y'all though, but great team as well. Yeah, Jeremiah Love, man. I mean, he's someone that he got some opportunity his freshman year. This is his second year. 6 foot, just over 200. Great size. He has good speed. As we saw, he could break away. What you say, 98 yards, right?
Mm-hmm.
Has good cuts and good ability. So he's definitely someone to watch, and I could definitely see him being elevated to that RB1. I know a lot of people are already talking about that as he's the RB1. But any given year, I mean, college football always changes, and I think the talent on tape shows it. But we can see next year some guys have big seasons. Maybe Quinshawn stays. We're gonna talk about him. Maybe Quinshawn Judkins stays and becomes the full-time back for Ohio State. Right? That could be huge, right?
Maybe Cedric Baxter comes back healthy.
Maybe Cedric Baxter, or maybe Quinton Wiesner. We're talking about him.
Too, yeah.
Potentially. I know, or even we could talk about maybe Singleton or Allen stay. They both have big. So there's a lot of moving pieces that we're not 100% sure on what this may be. But I think right now Jeremiah Love definitely has the tools to be serious RB1 and one of the top guys that we're going to be talking about next year as well. But speaking of Notre Dame, they're going on to face Georgia at the All-State Sugar Bowl. With Kenneth's question, Carson Beck is out; he won't be playing, so that's going to be a huge blow to Georgia. Georgia's offense in general hasn't looked the best as we've seen it. Their defense is top notch. Just quick on this though, who do you think wins this matchup?
I'm gonna probably go with Georgia.
Mm-hmm.
To be honest, if Riley Leonard plays a clean game, to be honest with you, I wouldn't be shocked if Notre Dame wins this. But you're going to be really dependent on what Riley Leonard does at quarterback.
100%. He's a solid guy. I think he's going to be a solid leader at the next level. Backup, I don't think he's going to be a full-time star, but he's going to be a solid leader and just someone that has knowledge for everyone that comes in. He's been in NCAA for some time now, so someone that just has a lot of knowledge to be able to pass on the game for them as well. But excited to see him. I think Georgia wins. I think their defense is going to be too much for Notre Dame's offense just overall. Yeah. So our next one, though, this is a big one. Penn State actually came out and the Lions just dog walked over SMU. We were talking about blowouts. This is one of them. They actually won big 38-10 over SMU. And that was really due to the fact because their stars actually ended up shining. We talked about their running backs here. Let me pull this up real quick so we see the bottom there. But Penn State's running backs, they had their backfield, 25 rushing attempts, 160 yards, 3 touchdowns between Singleton and Allen. Katron Allen also had 2 receptions for 28 yards. And Tyler Warren, their tight end, had 4 receptions for 33 yards. What did you take away from this game, and what really excited you about this Penn State offense in general?
So you completely said it already. You kind of killed it there, but they absolutely dog walked SMU, or they raced them, if you want to say, if horse metaphors. But Singleton and Katron Allen, to be honest with you, it's going to be really hard for me to put one over the other, just based on what I've seen from those two. I haven't dug deep into both of those players yet, but the games I've watched, the game, especially this one, because this is like the big game. This is a big game, even though they, like we said, smashed them. Both these guys showed out. Both these running backs show a 3-down skill set. So it's going to be really tough. Who I'm going to prefer more? Katron really popped to me, though, in this past game.
Yeah. Katron, for what I've seen on tape, Singleton's definitely more of a shoulders down, run over you kind of deal. As well, he's fast too. He can break away. where Katron's more vertical. I think he runs more straight up, not necessarily short, but he's also taller than Singleton. Both of them have the speed. Both of them have the elusiveness to break their tackles. And we saw it time and time again in this game where they found the holes and made the big plays happen. So you love that. Drew Aller played pretty good, not throwing touchdowns, but he still played well as far as just evading the tackles in the backfield. You watch the game, he actually showcased his mobility on escaping the pressure is what I really saw or took away from this game when I watched him. A lot of times in the past, I've seen him, or last year, especially, in games this year, it seems like at times he collapsed when that pressure was getting to him. In this game, I didn't see that, and I saw him being able to get through, at least get the guys open to get those yards. 127 yards may not show that, but again, it's because Singleton and Allen had the big plays there and made some big moves for them.
Yeah. The mental errors for Alar is the biggest thing, and I do think
Right.
a lot of that is based off of pressure. He did have a pick, if I remember correctly, where he was supposed to be throwing a slant. He threw it behind the receiver, bounced off the receiver, and got picked off. It was a tip drill play, but again, that was the pocket started to collapse around him, and he was trying to get it out quick, and it was just one mental lapse where he threw it behind the receiver and ended up being a pick.
Well, with this too, I mean, the best thing about it was this was really something that was not Aller, that was Grunkenmeyer, I do believe, that threw the interception.
Was it? Okay. Oh, that was at the end of the game, so they pulled. Yeah, you're right. When I was rewatching it today, I was going a little too quickly for myself.
That's okay. I was looking. I was like, I don't think he had a pick. But no, but speaking of picks, SMU really lost this game. They beat themselves because it was actually close in the first quarter, up about till the end of it. And then Del Ruca, if I'm not mistaken, is his name, the defender for for Penn State, got a pick six. And then guess what? A couple drives there, if not the next drive, if I'm not mistaken, Kevin Jennings threw another pick six. So they were right down.
What's the edge rusher's name from Penn State that was wreaking a whole bunch?
Abdul Carter.
Yeah,
He's a guy you want to know about.
Yeah,
he's a guy. Scary. If you're in IDP leagues, he is a monster. He is a beast. He's one of the top edge rushers coming into the season, and he's proven it all season. Also, Danny Dennis Sutton, who's their middle guy, beast. For you, a dog. He has a dog meter 100%, just getting after the quarterbacks and doing it. But again, it was a strong showing to begin the game. And then after those, they were down 14-0. And then after that, that's when they just started dog walking them. That's when you see Singleton and Katron actually start going through and breaking these tackles and making defenders miss and just go bananas over them and getting these touchdowns for them. So great win for Penn State. I'm excited for this next game. This is this isn't the top game on mine for obvious reasons, but this is definitely a huge game because they're actually playing in the VRBO Fiesta Bowl against Boise State. What are your thoughts here? Do we see Ashton Jeanty get contained? Is he unable to get contained? Who do you think wins?
So I think it's got to be Penn State, right? Like, there's no way
it's got to be
lose to Boise, but this is actually a big showing for Ashton Jeanty. I know we're talking mostly about Penn State, but Jeanty, I mean, he's shown it against top, Oregon and stuff. Like we talked about it last week, where it was early on Oregon, but he still did it, so that's great. But this is a huge test, a really good defense in a playoff setting. This is huge for Jeanty, more for anything for like us fantasy people or Dynasty and Devy people. Just see Jeanty against his team is amazing.
Right. I know he played Oregon at the beginning. I've said it time and time again. Oregon in week 2 when Boise State played is not the same Oregon defense that is today. It's a whole different mindset, a whole different idea of defense. They just gotten tougher. They've got more physical. That's another topic. So with that in mind, though, with that comment there, Penn State is the best defense that Boise State's played all season. This is going to be a premier rush defense. This is going to be a defense that has guys in the front 7 that can get to the guys in the backfield that know how to add pressure. If they can close down Jeanty, this is going to be a huge game for Max Mudson, to actually step up because it's going to show we've seen they're one-dimensional. I mean, not because of choice, but because they have Ashton Jeanty. So it's like, why not use him? But this is going to be a game to say, hey, you might get shut down. So what's y'all's answer to that? But also for Jeanty, if he comes out here, and even in a loss, if he comes out and has 130 yards, it's still great, So eyes will be on Genty, eyes will be on Katron and Nick Singleton, because all of them I think are, at least for me, they're all top 10 RBs this season. Singleton and Genty top 3 RBs for me this coming draft. So it'll be nice to see this matchup, because I think we're going to see a lot in all these running backs here.
Now, if you had to put an over/under on Genty's rushing yards, what do you think it would be? Because I can't look at it in Pennsylvania, so I can't. It won't let me. What do you think?
I think this is tough, man. I'm gonna say he doesn't get under 95. That's what I'll say.
I was going to ask you if 85 is too high, too low. That was going to be.
I was gonna say 80, but I think that's too low. I think he can. 95 is high, but that's what I'm saying. I think he gets under that. So 8. I was gonna say 80. I don't think he gets less than 80, but I think he gets less than 95. So I'll put over on 80, less than 95.
If he hits that century mark and they still lose, do you consider that a success for him, especially for the draft purposes, fantasy purposes?
One thing with Genty, and this isn't necessarily a knock, but if he has that century mark, it's going to depend on what his yards per carry become, right? Because
fair.
If he runs 33 times and gets 100 yards, I mean, that's awesome, but it's like you had a lot of just dink off there where you just got a couple yards there, right? So if he runs for 15 times and gets 100 yards, that's still going to do well. But that's one thing about Genty, and he's a workhorse, so you're going to feed him the ball, but that's one thing that's like, he gets all these, so his yards per carry hasn't necessarily gone down with all these carries. But if he gets that and gets just 100, I mean, still, to me, it's like, all right, bro, but that was a really tough defense. Like, are you going to be doing this against pro guys? Because, again, no offense to the guys in G5 there, but, like, you're not all these guys are going pro, right? You're not playing the guys that are Big Ten, that these defensive linemen are going pro, right? So this is going to be a huge test to him. We're going to see a lot in this game. Tape doesn't lie. He's a great athlete. I'm not knocking that. But these are good. This is going to be the top defense that he's played all season. It's only going to get, say, Georgia wins, right? Or Notre Dame. It's only going to get harder, right? So Penn State may be the best one right now, but if they succeed, it's going to get harder. So this whole playoff is really a test. If he gets past Penn State, all right, awesome. Let's continue to see it, right? Because it's still going to say, hey, bro, I want to see you consistently do work against these top defenses here.
Fair. So, it's very fair.
But Penn State dominated on defense, and, I expect them to do that again. And it's going to be, if say they get 2 picks, this is start out the gate again, does that mean they only focus on passing, so they didn't even take out Genty out the run? But if that's your best player, you don't necessarily want to do that. Right. But let's move on to the next game here. We're going to talk about Texas, the new SEC team, coming in and dominating Clemson, actually 38-24. This game, Clemson actually scored first, a good game to Antonio Williams, and they were doing well. And then after that, though, Texas just had unanswered points for them. I think it was 21, if I'm not mistaken, at least maybe 28 unanswered points. I don't remember off the top, but it was something dominant. And again, we're talking about the stars. They're shining. We talked about the 2 running backs in Penn State. These running backs in Texas actually did great. Jadon Blue and Quintrivion Wisner, 29 attempts, 256 yards, 4 touchdowns there. Blue had 14 for 146 and 2 receptions for 31, and then Wisner had 15 for 110 and 2 touchdowns. Both running backs just dominated, and it wasn't just like we were just talking about Neeks and Dinks here. They were getting through these holes. There were some times where, all right, that their hole was blocked. So guess what? They just shifted directions and ran the other way. There was one play by Blue. I think it was like 77 yards at the end, just gone. He took off on both sides, one on the right, one on the left, just completely gone. Like he just hit the sideline and that was it. Like there was guys even close to him, but he just put on the burners and was gone. What are your thoughts on these running backs, though?
So these are 2 guys I'm not, especially Wisner. Blue, I'm a little bit more familiar with. Wisner, I didn't know much about at all. For sure. And when you mentioned that 28-point swing that they had at one point, it mostly came from the ground too, which was crazy because so when I was watching Wisner, I noticed this dude is extremely patient from what I could tell in this game. Again, I don't know much about him, just based on what I saw. He let the holes develop. He let the line make holes for him, and then he hit them hard, which is that showed on that. I think he had like a 30-yard run for a TD. Maybe it was his first touchdown, second touchdown. No, it was his second touchdown. because his first one was a goal line carry. But it
Yeah,
was a very nice run, and it seemed very explosive too. So this is somebody I'm going to have to look at a little bit more. He might be something. I'm not sure. I got to see it a little bit more.
for sure. No, I mean they both look dominant. The best thing about it is was Blue probably gone. I mean, I think he could stay again if he wanted to.
Hmm.
But he's probably going to end up declaring. I mean, he can't stay, but yeah, Trevion Wisner, Jared Gibson, freshman, like you mentioned, Cedric Baxter earlier. Texas, I mean, to be honest, they might be the RBU. I mean, you talk
Yeah,
about the
with
guys,
Bijan Brooks. Yeah.
yeah, and I mean, even Roshan. I know Roshan's are doing it, but he was all
True.
right
Forgot about.
too. You know,
He's playing
so
tonight.
yeah, and so they have guys left and right, and this is just a phenomenal performance by them. Um, Clemson just had no answers, as you said. They were breaking off runs, excellent vision all the way through, and that's going. When we say vision, it's not about just seeing the holes and exploring to the holes. Multiple times, Clemson locked up the hole, and the running backs, what they do, they just did a little quick juke to the left or to the right, and then got outside the other way. It's like, oh, Eric, the front seven's here. I'm gonna go here. Here's the open lane, and they were gone. And it wasn't even like they were breaking tackles; they were just making guys miss. Like they just weren't allowing guys to touch them. They had it wasn't even like red seas that they were going through. They just got small if they needed to, hit the holes, boom, they were gone. It was just a great showing for them. We talked about Ewers, right? Yeah, Kenneth was asking earlier about Ewers. One touchdown, one interception, 202 yards. Not the best performance, but again, he didn't need to show out as much as he needed to, right? The running backs did it all. Uh, Gay Klubnik, I thought played phenomenal. You know,
Yeah,
43
I was.
pass
That was.
attempts,
Yep.
three touchdowns, 336 yards. I'm curious to see what he does because he can definitely go in. I don't know if he does enter the draft though, because one, Dabo's doing something we haven't seen from Dabo. He's going out and getting people in the transfer portal. So that's one. That's great because he's always said, hey, if they're in the transfer portal, they're not good enough for us. Dabo, you're go to the transfer portal. Two, he has two freshman wide receivers. Antonio Williams had the first touchdown, which was great. But TJ Moore, 116 yards off 9 receptions and one touchdown. And Brian Westcott Jr., three receptions for 30 yards. Two freshman wide receivers. Plus, they may get someone in transfer portal. They do need to get a better running back, I believe. But
Well,
still,
Maffa, what happened to Maffa? Did he get hurt? I know he was hurt coming into the game, and then it seemed like he was kind of banged up during the game because then Randall was making,
yeah.
having had a couple carries. Who I like Randall. I wish they would give him a little bit more of a shot,
Mhm.
but it doesn't seem like that's going to be possible.
I don't know if Maffa got injured, but I do know there was a point where it's like they weren't running anymore. I mean, it got to the point where it's like they had to go to the air to pass it, right? So they were trying to move the ball in different ways because Texas was all over the run game. I mean, they had 76 yards on the ground.
Right.
Shout out to Texas defenders just being dominant in the front seven too. But yeah, I do like their freshmen. But then on the flip side, for the receivers, a guy, we talked about Tyler Warren. I don't think a lot of people are talking about Gunnar Helm. I
Oh,
think this
thank God.
guy.
I was going to mention. I was hoping you were going to mention him. I love Gunnar Helm.
I think this guy, I mean, we talk about your dog meter, right? I think this guy is a dog. He's someone that's like, excuse me, I wasn't familiar with your game. He has been dominant all season. 6 receptions, 77 yards, and a touchdown in this game. This is the guy that I can see creep up to day two in the draft. And someone where I'm gonna be curious on, okay, I'm gonna take him because I don't think a lot of people are talking about him. I think he's gonna slip. He's 6'5, 250. You may be getting him in the third round. He may be a solid tight end at the next level. But go ahead. What are your thoughts on him?
Yeah, I 100% agree with you. I've been trying to pound the Gunnar Helm drum on Twitter for a couple weeks now. I'm not going to say for a long time. It's just been a
Mhm.
few weeks, but um, he is a very what's it called, inline tight end, a
Mhm.
guy who can kind of do it all. I noticed him blocking his ass off in this past game, especially creating those holes for those running backs that we were just talking about.
Mhm.
There was that run at the goal line that Wisner had where he was just he basically dragged the dude to the right and created an open lane for Wisner for a touchdown.
Mhm.
That's going to be a selling point for NFL teams that because they want their tight ends to be able to block.
Right.
And not only a really good blocker, he's a very solid pass catcher, decent route runner, quick for a guy who's 250. You said he is.
Yeah.
So I'm interested to see him down at the Senior Bowl.
Yeah.
So that we'll see how that goes because he's an accepted invite down there.
Also, speaking of that, man, sorry. Shout out you, bro. I heard you got accepted. You know, your credentials got it. So I'm be excited to see everything you do at the Senior Bowl. I know last year you killed it. So, stoked for you to go this year. And everyone listening, make sure you're following Dynasty Dog Mike on X because I'm sure you'll have content from that Senior Bowl. But excited for you, man, to have
I
that
appreciate
opportunity to go.
I appreciate that. But yeah, I'm very excited to see him down there in one-on-ones and in the blocking drills because they do a lot of blocking drills down there,
For sure.
and see how he stands out.
Yeah, bro. I think he's gonna be phenomenal. And speaking of this Texas, I mean, one guy we won't get too much in because it's not necessarily fantasy related, but their offensive tackle, Kelvin Banks Jr. He's gonna be one of the top three offensive tackles off the board. This guy is just a monster. He's 320 pounds. He moves like he's like 150 though. He's just a beast all around. So if your team drafts him, or if you're doing a startup and you see a team draft Kelvin Banks, get that running back because
Yeah.
he's someone that will clear those holes. Texas is going to move on to play Arizona State at the Chick-Fil-A Bowl. This should be blowout. It should be worse. It should be closer to the SMU Penn State type of thing. But any thoughts here?
No, I kind of see that as well. I think this, Ewers needs this win as well,
Mm-hmm.
especially if he is going to declare for the draft. He needs as many wins in the playoffs as he could possibly get.
Right.
And Texas is just an overall better team than Arizona. I mean, I think that's pretty obvious.
Yeah.
So it's going to be interesting. Well, it
Yeah.
shouldn't be interesting. It should be a blowout.
Should be. Hopefully Arizona makes the game. Maybe they upset, but as we were saying earlier, Ewers needs to ball out to say, okay, going in the draft. And to be honest, we talked about Shadir and Cam, and then it's kind of, a little bit
Wide
weak.
open. Mm-hmm.
So if he goes, he might be the default QB3, maybe. I don't know. That time will tell. There's a lot to go on with that. The final game of the week, though, and this, we're gonna leave it out with the big one because on paper, this was the one where it's like this is the game that's gonna be the closest, right? This is the game that's gonna matter. It's gonna be big. I mean, plus whoever wins this game goes to face the Big Ten champions, right? So it's like, oh, okay, this is massive game, but Ohio State just rolled over Tennessee 42-17. Nico Alamavia, he tried to do everything and he just couldn't. I mean, they were
He's a
testing.
dog, though.
I'm sorry?
He's 100% a dog, though.
Oh, yeah.
There's no quitting that dude. I love that kid.
But, the big thing with Joe Milton last year, when I was saying about, everyone's on his arm and stuff, the receivers, where's his help? He doesn't, they need if anyone needs a wide receiver in the portal, it is Tennessee. They need someone in the portal. It would not surprise me if Nico ends up leaving because he has no help on the receiving end. We can talk about some of the running backs here in a bit, but there's just nothing there for them, which makes it hard. But we're talking about the guys that balled out. And we talked about, potentially RB1 for 2026. Let's talk about Ohio State's freshman wide receiver, who's potentially the wide receiver one of the 2027 class in the future. Jeremiah Smith, 6 receptions, 103 yards, 2 touchdowns. The veterans there, Emeka Ibuka had 5 receptions for 81 yards. Travion Henderson had 10 carries for 80 yards and 2 touchdowns, plus 4 receptions for 54 yards. But Jeremiah Smith, talk about dogs, man. Go ahead. What are your thoughts on Jeremiah Smith so far?
If you play Dynasty, you need to make sure you have 2027, first round picks, as many as you can,
100%.
just in case he comes out then. Hopefully he does. And you need as many as you can just to get this kid. This kid was absolutely a man amongst boys against Tennessee. And that's a decent Tennessee defense with good corners. That fade route he had, I think it was the second or third touchdown of the game. It was just absolutely just filthy. Just beat the dude straight off the line, and it was over from there. And that's just one of the most impressive things. As soon as you beat him off the line, it's over.
Yep. And he's so, I mean, it was the first touchdown actually that they talked about where Will Howard knew he saw Jeremiah Smith. He saw Jeremiah Smith beat him. His defensive back, I don't know who was on him, but saw him beat him, and he just placed in a beautifully spot where Jeremiah Smith was able to bring it down in the end zone. Man, you talk about wide receivers that have everything from the get-go: vision, concentration, awareness, hands, route running, speed. Every single box you look at whenever you're watching tape for wide receivers, this guy's just check. He is hitting every single thing and just making making it look easy. Like, who's doing this, right? And it's this guy. I mean, he is phenomenal. Emeka Ibuka, he's I
It
know a
sucks that he
lot.
has to play second fiddle again to
No, for sure. To Jeremiah.
and well, last year was Marvin Harrison,
Yeah.
so it sucks that, but he in his own right is still a very good wide receiver. So I kind of compare those two to a DKJSN
Yeah.
in Seattle. Like Ryan, I almost said Ryan. Well, I'm sorry, Jeremiah Smith is like your DK,
For sure.
your athletic freak, and then you have the guy who can just kill you in the intermediate, short, get open quick, and Ibuka,
Right.
and then create after the catch. And I just think those
Yeah.
two work extremely well together.
100%. And Ibuka, yes, is playing second fiddle. But I need to go through it. I'm always adjusting my rankings here just based on going back onto tape, seeing different things. And it's like Ibuka might be my wide receiver one when it's all said and done.
Oh,
Just
okay.
because I really just love this guy's game, man. He is such a pure route runner, and he has such solid hands. Where I feel Jeremiah Smith had all this talent. You watch his high school tape; he's doing some of the same stuff. But I feel Jeremiah Smith's even better because Egbuka's on his team, and Egbuka is teaching him like this is how you go out there and be a wide receiver, how to be a dog in a sense at this level. He's just very talented, man. He's gonna be a first round wide receiver. I know a lot of people have Tet on him, but Egbuka signs all over the field. I can pick some things off on Tet. There'll be a different discussion later, but I really love what I see in Egbuka. And Will Howard, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception, 311 yards. Didn't play bad either. And then, Travion Henderson, I thought he had a great game. He's coming out, someone that's bound through adversity with injuries. Came out and looked great, and he had some good runs too where he busted through the hole and, showed his speed and got through it, where Quinshon Junkins, 10 for 34 and 2 touchdowns as well. Not as bad,
Effective.
still did great. Yeah. On the flip side, though, we talked about Nico. Again, just needs that help, man. I expected Ohio State to win. I thought Tennessee would put on more of a fight, and they just didn't. I think that's just where we thought they were, and that's what it is, though. But Nico, I wouldn't be surprised if he transferred. I think it would be good for him to do it, but there's a lot of stuff at hand. Any thoughts on any other players there? Because I know Jack Sawyer had a huge game on defense. I don't know if you're in IDP. Good defensive end, just dominant. He's going to be someone that looks great at the next level as well. We talked about, Smith, Egbuka, Cardinal Tate, 1 reception, 18 yards. Wasn't as effective, but he's someone to watch out in Ohio State as well. But any other thoughts on players here?
So you mentioned the 2 running backs. They were in Quinshon Judkins and Travion Henderson. I have watched Judkins from his time at Ole Miss, and I've been just very impressed by him every step of the way. Strong runner, smooth but strong runner. Just gets it done in every single facet. Maybe not as effective as a pass catcher, but can do it. But this is really, I don't want to say my first time watching Travion Henderson because I've watched him before, but really just focusing on him, if that makes sense. I was extremely impressed with him, and he's definitely got, to me, just again, watching them 2 on the same field together, he's got a bit more of a wiggle than Quinshon does, and that's a good thing.
Yeah.
But with Nico, like you mentioned, that dude had a nobody open the entire game. Ohio State had every single Tennessee wide receiver in the USO penitentiary.
Yeah.
I know Squirrel White hurt pretty early on. He didn't return, to my knowledge, and they had no answers for the Ohio State defense at all. Dylan Sampson, I think he needs to go back for another year because, when they needed him most, an offensive weapon, because this is a kid who can catch the ball, can create. He was nowhere to be found. There were several times, if you watch the broadcast over again, like, oh, where's Dylan Sampson? He's standing on the sideline with his helmet on. He's not coming back in the game. Like, I think he needs another year. Because this was a big stage, and this is, if he would have came out and balled out, I'd be like, okay, he's coming out this year. But I really like Sampson, but I do think he's going to need another year.
100%. Yeah, I think so too. I think we didn't see what we needed to see from him. Roy, I'm not impressed with anyone on Tennessee. I mean, Nico even had the 2 they had 17 points. Both touchdowns were Nico rushing it because
Yeah, I
he
think he
had wide
rushed
receivers
20
open.
times. I think he
Yeah,
rushed 20, which is an insane amount for a
right,
quarterback who's also throwing 30 times. So
right,
you can't expect that to work in any football game, but in a playoff setting.
right. And that's something. I mean, he could maybe do it pro, but you can't. You have to get him help, man. It just has to happen. We're gonna answer this though. Emiliano, thanks for joining here. Asked us a one wide receiver, one
Oh,
flex, one tight end. Who are you starting? Jerome Ford, Tajay Spears, Jawan Jennings, Cooper Cup, Jacoby Myers, Tucker Crawford, Okonkwo.
so I got to
I
look
would
up
go.
who's each playing real quick before I.
I would do Okonkwo. He's playing against the Jaguars, so I would do that one. That's great. Kraft is playing the
Uh,
Vikings,
yeah, the Vikings.
so I would do Okonkwo there as my tight end. We're looking at our flex here. Um, let's see
So it would be
what
between Cup, Jacoby, and Juwan Jennings. Is that what I'm
for the wide
understanding?
receiver and then you can add
Oh,
one in the flex
oh,
there.
well, flex. So Cup is playing Arizona. Jacoby, who? Um, Juwan Jennings is playing, by the way, the Detroit. So
Okay,
that actually might not be a bad option in Juwan
yeah,
Jennings,
I think,
especially because I think Teron Arnold is questionable.
but Myers has a good matchup too, doesn't he? Who the
I
Raiders playing?
feel like you might be right, but I'm not 100% sure.
They're playing New
Uh,
Orleans.
oh yeah, then that's
Uh,
that's that's probably your wide receiver, and then maybe Juwan Jennings in the flex.
Jawan James and flex. Yeah, I'm not starting Ford. Um, Cup against Arizona though.
That's tough.
Uh,
See, he's been a
I
no-show,
yeah
and Puka's been eating pretty
yeah.
well.
So yeah,
So
I like Juwan Jacoby and the Conquo. I think that's good.
Spears, though, is Pollard playing? I
I
think
think
I
he's
saw that
still,
he. Let me see.
if I'm not mistaken, he's questionable. He might be out.
Yeah, he might be, and if he is,
He's
Spears.
questionable right now,
Okay,
but he
Spears
missed
has
another
been playing
practice.
pretty well. Did he?
Yeah,
I think that what we said though is the right answer. Jacoby, Juwan Jennings, and Okonkwo, which is absolutely insane to say that we're
right,
benching Cooper Cup.
right.
It's just insane, but it's just you're in your championship now. I would imagine,
Yeah,
Emilio, and I'm a big proponent in starting your studs, but your stud hasn't shown up for you in a few weeks, right?
right. 100%.
So, and Jacoby Myers, dude, believe it or not, like he's like pretty much an unsung hero fantasy football asset every single year. A guy
He's
who's
a
going to
dog,
finish.
bro.
Yeah, he's a borderline, like a and not borderline. He's a high, mid, low end wide receiver too, borderline
Yeah,
every year. So it's just a guy you can plug and play and feel relatively comfortable about.
100%. I think he can go out there and do some work. I like
Yeah.
him, especially in this matchup against New Orleans and Detroit. Not great on the secondary, so you can go ahead and start him. I think they would be great. Before we do close out here, thanks for joining in there too, Emiliano. Before we do close out, as we mentioned, Ohio State, they rolled over Tennessee. They are playing Oregon at the Rose Bowl. Some say this is the national championship. What are your thoughts on this game without two SDs? Like, do you think it's close as it was in the first time they
I
played?
I think it's close again. I think
Okay.
these are. I think this should be, believe it or not, I think this should have been the national championship game.
Mhm,
Um, these are the two best offenses, right? To
mhm.
me, and that's left in the playoffs right now.
Right.
This is two, I would say, top two, three defenses. You can
Mhm.
maybe make an argument for Georgia because they're just always very good. So it's kind of hard to say that they're not in the two, three top two, defenses.
Right.
Um, but again, this should. But I'm sticking with my original pick in Oregon to win it all. So I'm gonna go with Oregon
Okay.
over Ohio State.
There you go, man. That's why we love having you on the show. No,
Well,
I think it's a Oregon. I think it is close. I think it's different because I think Dan Lanning has them coached the right way. Like he's
mhm.
telling them, like even with this week off, it was kind of like, hey man, we're gonna take it easy, but we're not taking it easy. He's coaching them the right way. No moment is too big. And it comes down to Dylan Gabriel. There's some times during the season where he threw some horrible plays or just didn't even look the other way. That's like, bro, your guy's wide open. So he's got to be on his A game all game, but I also feel he's confident enough where this isn't a big stage. It's a big stage, but it's not too big for him, right?
Mm.
So the defense is going to show up. They're getting their defensive end back, Jordan Burch, which is going to be huge for them. They didn't have him the first time they played Ohio State, so now you have him. Now you have him, Mateo, locking up Ohio State at the front seven and making sure, they're getting pressure on Will Howard. It's going to be a great game. I'm going to be tuned in for it for sure. I'm going to say Oregon there. So that means we would have in our playoff setting, let me give it 1 second to pull it up real quick. In the playoff setting, we would have Texas versus Oregon, Penn State versus Georgia. That would be
good. The best case scenario too, I think.
For sure.
Although, I mean, Ohio State, would Ohio State still play Penn State, or would that change some things?
No, I don't think it does it by the. I think it's by the brackets, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay, so it should be fine.
Yeah. So
I mean that would just be the rivalry.
Ohio State can only play Penn State in the championship.
Okay.
It's on their brackets there. So Boise State, Penn State's on New Year's Eve. That's gonna be good, and then the rest of them are New Year's Day. With the Georgia one, for whatever reason, having the night game. That's stupid. But Oregon has the midday game, which is all right. But it's gonna be great either way. Mike, I appreciate you coming on the show. Talking some college football recap, some rising stars here. Anything you want to say to the people of the FFU?
Yeah. So first, I want to say thank you for having me on again. It's always great talking to you. You're one of my favorite people in the space. Sorry for my screw up with the LR pick earlier, even though it was the backup. That was my mistake. But again, I really appreciate you having me on, and hopefully we can do this again soon.
For sure, bro. For sure. Now, always a pleasure, man, to have you. I know you know ball, and I know you like watching the tape and just talking about this, guys. Follow him on X. I keep doing the wrong way. Follow him on X at DynastyDog Mike. As he said earlier, my man's got a ticket to the senior. Right? What am I doing? My man's got. Wait.
Well, I got to go south.
Yeah.
I got to go south for Alabama.
There you go. I mean, I'm saying just follow you. You got the Senior Bowl, right? So excited to see what that comes out. Senior Bowl is always great. That's where we get some rising stars itself for the draft. So excited to see what comes out from there, and hope you have a blast there. But yeah, until next time, I'm sure we're gonna do a recap. Over the second round of the playoffs here. We got some big games, so hopefully everything happens. Shout out Big Ten, Oregon. And hopefully they seal the deal and get to the next step, the semifinals there. But until next time, for everyone at the FFU, I'm SC Romero. Go Ducks, and we will see y'all later.
Go Birds.
Listen up.